Hello and welcome back to the movies made us do it. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
I'm pretty good, sir. How about you?
I'm all right. Yeah, I've been ill. Ill for a week or so, so everything was delayed, and then I was really busy and delayed in posting the last episode anyway, so it kind of probably wasn't as big of a gap as it was for us as it seemed for everyone else. But yeah, finally did the COVID. I think so. That's one off the list.
Hooray! Hooray!
And I spent the time, well, reading and watching a lot of. I decided I was going to watch all the Harry Potter movies for the first time.
Okay.
So I've been working my way through them because I've watched two of them in the past.
Right.
The second one, as it turns out, and then the Half-Blood Prince was the other one that I'd seen in the cinema.
Okay. Those are the weirdest ones to pick to randomly watch.
Yeah, I guess so. The Half-Blood Prince was because my friend wanted to see it in the cinema, and I was just there, and I was like, okay, you know. So it was the first time I was, and then I remember they were on in the background when we were like a New Year's Eve, just getting drunk, so I paid no attention to it.
Yeah.
This is my first time watching them all the way through, and they're way better than I thought they would be, actually.
I think that mostly they're all pretty good.
They're solid, and you know what? I always remember the acting being really terrible in
the first one.
Well, the second one certainly I remember being really ropey, and it's not at all now. And I'm like, okay, their acting's not anywhere near as bad as I thought. Even in the first one, they're not that bad.
No, they're not hideous, but they're. Well, I don't know. Hermione sometimes is a bit.
Yes, she is the worst, but she gets very good very fast.
Yes.
By the third movie, they're all fantastic.
Yeah, you can.
Prisoner of Azkaban, which is probably my favorite so far. That one, they're all great in that one.
I think that's what's one of the really great things about the progression of those movies is that you can literally see them growing up and
getting acting lessons.
Feet,
and
you know
yeah,
what I mean? It's
really good. It's a really good set of films. I've got two more to go because the last part I think was in two parts, right? So
okay,
I've got those two to go, which is one tonight, one tomorrow.
Now, it's stretched way too much.
Yeah, I
not have been too.
Yeah, well, that's fine, you know. But that's been fun. It's given me something to do, and I've got back into back into comics a bit as well. I've been reading some comics lately, so that's been nice. Well, I bought over Christmas. I bought the complete Ghost in the Shell. They released an English translation in a massive book, so I bought that, and I was reading through that, and then I decided to take a break. And for years now, because as you know, 2000 AD was my comic when I was a kid. For years, whenever I've seen them, sort of, you know, £10 or less, I've been picking up the Dread complete case files.
I want to do that as well. I've got. I've got
1 to 10 now, which I think is all the black and white ones.
Yeah.
And so I took a break from Ghost in the Shell to go back and start reading some of those, and yeah, they absolutely hold up. They're just as great as I remember. I've got a
big chunk of 2000 ADs from about 87 to mid-90s, I think.
Okay, cool.
So I've got a big chunk of those, but I don't have any of the really classic stories like the Apocalypse War and
this is all of this stuff.
That's what I need to pick up.
The first book is probably the slowest of the bunch so far. It's okay, but it's all very standalone and stuff. And then you know, by volume 2 you're into like the Cursed Earth and all of that stuff.
When you get to that stuff, it's fucking great.
Oh, it's so good, dude.
War and the Block War and all that stuff. And when Death turns up, Judge Death turns up. It's fucking great.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good, and it's been really fun. I've actually found my, you know, because I'd kind of fallen out of comics ages ago, and then comic book movies annoy the piss out of me these days. So I was like, you know, kind of jaded on it, but going back to that stuff. I guess being ill and having more time when I'm not, you know, because I'm
that's cool.
Lying around. I've been like, oh, okay, you know, really enjoying it, and really enjoying Ghost in the Shell because it's quite different from the manga and from even from like standalone complex. Like the Major's quite a different character.
I haven't read the whole Ghost in the Shell, but I've read I think at least half of it, and it's a lot different. But then it's kind of expect.
I'm enjoying it though. She seems to have a much more fleshed out character in the graphic novels. Because she starts off very different, and then she becomes more serious as things kind of happen. she kind of starts off, very jokey and brash, I guess, and then she kind of becomes the major that you kind of know and love later. But that has been fun. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about today. I have been ill. I'm doing all right, so I'm hoping there won't be too much coughing, and I can turn the volume down whenever I cough. But hopefully we can get through this, because this film is short.
That's true.
So we are covering High Noon from 1952. Mm-hmm. When was the first time you saw High Noon?
So this is another one of those ones that I saw with my granddad. And I have specific memories of this one for one reason, and that is my granddad had a fucking terrible singing voice.
Oh no.
And
oh no.
He liked to sing the song Do Not Forsake Me at the top of his awful voice.
Which was written for this film, right?
It was, yeah, it was written for this film.
And my God, do they fucking love it. They repeat this song every 5 fucking seconds.
Do you know what the thing that gets me is that by halfway through, you're like, I fucking hate this song. It's really getting on my fucking
nerves. The thing is, I was in two minds, because it really, I understand, and the song literally fits the film amazingly well. It's written for it, and the message is fine, but it is like, guys, when Lee Van Cleef's fucking playing it on the harmonica, the church choir sometimes seem to be singing it, and then when they're not, there's just music playing it, and it's just constant throughout the whole thing. It's like early, it's like the pilot episode of like Babylon 5 or something, when they just play the Babylon 5 theme over and over again because they got nothing else. It's like basically like that with this. You're like watching it, you're like, I get it, guys. So your granddad used to torment you with this song.
He'd sing it at the top of his voice,
right?
Very, very, very badly, and much to his amusement and everybody else's horror. But the thing is, so like I said, for me, but halfway through, you're like, I fucking hate this song. But actually, towards the end, I think you pick up on it, and I quite like it again. But it's definitely overused.
Oh God, it's so overused.
And what I didn't know is, it was sung by Tex Ritter,
right?
Who was an actual cowboy star and a musician. He was the father of John Ritter.
Oh, okay.
The actor who was in things like Problem Child and and 8 Simple Rules. I loved 8 Simple Rules. So yeah, I didn't know that. Not a clue. But yeah, so he got apparently one of his sort of Tex Ritter's sort of most treasured memories when he was asked when he was like old was he played it on at the Oscars.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, that was one of his favourite memories, which is that's really cool.
Awesome. Well, the first time I watched this film was 1 o'clock today.
Really? You've seen it before?
I thought I had. When we talked last time, I was like, oh yeah, High Noon. And I've seen clips. I've definitely seen clips of it. But watching it, I was like, do you know, I think I've assumed I've watched this film. Or I watched it when I was young enough that I barely remembered it.
Yeah.
It was like watching it for the first time for the most part. So yeah, I literally watched it. I've got the day off today, so I literally watched it like 1 o'clock today. So
I've seen it, a few times over the years, and it's been a while. So there's a few character actors that turn up in it that I was like, oh my God, I didn't even remember that person being in it.
It's like Lon Chaney Jr.'s over there. Awesome.
Well, yeah, my favourite thing about Lon Chaney Jr. is he was 5 years younger than Gary Cooper.
Yeah.
And he's playing the old, arthritic.
I mean, Lon Chaney Jr. went hard on the fucking drink and the drugs, though.
Lon Chaney looked old.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
He was quite a troubled life.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but a fantastic actor. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of his from his horror work. So he's like, horror and westerns were the only thing he really did, I think.
Yeah, I mean, towards the end, he'd kind of be in anything, wouldn't he? I mean, he was in so many bad movies.
Well, there's that. There is that story of him playing the mummy, and he literally, legend has it that he literally had as part of his mummy makeup, he literally had a tube that was going into his mouth, just vodka.
Yeah.
From like a pouch.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear stories like that, and you're like, God.
You hear a lot of stories about that. It's like Errol, the one about Errol Flynn,
Yeah.
and drinking,
Mm.
and him basically not being able, they try and take the drink off of him, and they said, oh, just eat some fruit and stuff. So he would have segments of orange injected with vodka. I think, oh man, that's when it gets to that level. You're like, yeah, there's just no hope for you, is there really?
Yeah. So let's get into it. And the movie opens with your favorite song, obviously. Yeah. But it's fine here because you're like, well, it's the opening of the song, opening of the film, and it fits really nicely. It's
a really beautiful shot of Lee Van Cleef.
Do you know what's interesting about it though? It's a hero's entrance, really. It feels like you're watching the hero coming in. And then it's only when they meet up. So obviously Jack, Ben, and Jim, the goons, all meet, and they head into town. And you think they're heroes until you start seeing the townspeople react.
Also, I think actually when they get together, because when the camera gets close,
true.
I think it's Cleef has got like 3 scratches on his face, and
Lee Van Cleef looks like the biggest villain in this movie.
Well, the funny thing is Cleef was originally up for the part of what's his bloody name?
Frank. Is it Frank?
No, the deputy.
Oh, the deputy. Okay.
The bridges part.
Yeah.
And the director said, "Oh, go and get your nose fixed because it makes you look too villainous."
Right.
And he refused to have his nose fixed, so he basically changed him to one of the villains.
Okay.
Because he said he just looked too villainous to play a good guy, and I mean they really emphasised.
Yeah.
How villainous he looks.
One of the things I find interesting, I don't think he barely says a word. In fact, all 3 of them barely say a word.
I don't think Cleef has a single word in the whole movie.
He plays the harmonica, and that's about it, I think. I was trying to think. I don't think he said any words, but
no.
He might have said something. And
I don't think he has a single word in the whole movie.
I think he says "arg" at one point. But that's a spoiler for later.
Yeah.
So the group riding on a horseback and is great. It's a small town called Hadleyville, I think.
Yep.
And it's Sunday morning, sleepy Sunday morning. Church bells are ringing.
Yeah.
And then you just see the townspeople react as this gang come through, and you can immediately tell they all know who these fuckers are.
Yeah.
There's obvious history here.
Well, there's a really good couple of sort of things. It's like there's a guy who's cleaning the fire engine. It's like, wow, this town's got a fire engine.
Yeah, it's a reasonably big town to have a fire engine.
So
I thought
he's there like almost like whistling and smiling while he's cleaning, and he looks round and it's like his face immediately drops.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Mexican woman who literally crosses herself.
She is. Oh no, the older Mexican woman.
Yes,
sorry.
The old Mexican lady crosses herself.
I was going to say Ramirez. She is my favorite character in this movie. I love her so much. She's literally just like, will fuckers stop knocking on my door and coming in my room?
Katie Gerardo.
Leave me alone.
She is amazing. I think
good.
I've only ever seen her in one other movie, and I'm now vaguely obsessed with her. I want to go sort of find more movies with her in.
She's so good, and I feel so bad for her character because she just everyone bugs her, and she just wants to be left alone.
Yeah,
the whole way through the movie.
Uh-huh.
But yes, the old lady here, and she does the cross, and you know immediately this gang they're no good.
Yep.
And I guess meanwhile, as they're kind of coming in, we see outgoing Marshal Will Kane, played by Gary Cooper, who, as I read, I didn't realize this, but apparently Gary Cooper's career was really in the dirt at this point. This was his big comeback.
Yeah, they basically said that he was no longer leading man material, and I think even his
he
manager
proves him wrong in this. His performance in this is superb.
Sort of company was like, "Yep, I think he's done, so we're probably going to remove him from our books." It's like, jeez. Yeah, I mean, he was 51, so...
Yeah, but God, I don't want to say he carries this movie, because I think all of the characters are great, but his performance is stunning in this film.
And the fun thing about his performance as well is Bridges said that when you were acting with him, it seemed like he was doing nothing.
Mm.
And he said, like he'd do the scene, and then the scene, they'd end, and he's like, "Is that the take you're going to go with? That's so weird. It's you didn't do anything." And then he said, "You see it on the screen, and it's like, oh, that's what he was doing. Okay, so yeah, he's amazing in this.
He is absolutely fantastic. But yes, so outgoing Marshal Kane is getting married to Amy Fowler, played by Grace Kelly. She's a Quaker, a pacifist, and they are not getting married at the church. Important enough, because she's a Quaker. They're getting married at the Justice of the Peace Office, according to this synopsis. It doesn't really make it very clear when you watch the movie. They were getting married somewhere. I didn't really pay attention.
He's not getting married at the church because all the others are at the church.
Yes, everyone else is at the church, and they're not.
When he does go to the church,
he gets chastised for it later.
Yeah, the priest makes a thing of it, doesn't he? And this is only Grace Kelly's second movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
God, she looks so stunningly beautiful in this.
She is amazing, isn't she?
Yeah, she's like breathtaking when you see her. Like, oh my God, she's really, really.
And the thing is that Katie Jurado is weirdly beautiful in like the opposite way.
Oh, definitely, absolutely.
They chose them to be the complete contrast of each other.
Strong females in this movie as well.
Yeah,
on both sides of this kind of awkward love triangle they've got going on, almost love triangle. I guess actually not really, because.
Well, it kind of.
Helen Ramirez don't give a shit anymore. She's like, I just want to be left alone.
Does. That's the thing. She does give a shit.
I mean, she does. She does give the. Well, we'll get to it a bit later. She does keep her eyes trained on him as they're leaving town and stuff. So but yeah. So they're getting married, and the outlaws ride through town, and they head out to the train depot. And as we will come to learn, they are expecting the arrival of this gang leader, Frank Miller.
Mm-hmm.
So, they get congratulated by the town mayor, Kane, that is, and his bride, not the outlaws. Congratulated by the mayor of the town, and also Lon Chaney Jr.'s retired marshal. And they're like, hey, good for you, and catch you later. And Kane obviously gives up his star because obviously his wife's a pacifist. She wants nothing to do with this life.
Yeah.
And they're about to leave when they get a telegram saying that Frank Miller's been pardoned. And of course,
basically put him away in the first place.
Yeah. So Kane had him arrested and sent to prison for murder. And I believe he says later that his intention was that he would get hanged, but apparently he was taken somewhere where it was life in prison instead.
Yeah, they moved him up north.
Yeah.
So he was supposed to get executed, but he did not.
So it kind of backfired.
Yeah.
So it's kind of clear to everyone now what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in the town kind of realizes, as they've all heard about this now, they're like, okay, they're here for some revenge. They're waiting for Frank to turn up.
Yeah.
And he's coming in on the noon train, right?
Yeah.
So Kane,
and at this point they all seem really amicable because they're all saying, right, come on, you don't want to.
They just want him gone. They're like, yeah, good for you, buddy. Catch you later.
Off, you go on and you go and live your life where you're going. You go and be a farmer or whatever it is you're going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it kind of feels nice and charming actually because they're all
It does. So they head out and they head out fast.
Yeah.
And I think obviously Amy really wants to avoid bloodshed, and the town are happy to avoid bloodshed as well. And they're like, yeah, off you go. And we do get the shot of the deputy, don't we, at this point?
Yeah.
Who sees them leaving. And he says to Helen, he's like, wow, I think he's scared of those gunnies. Like, I've never seen him whip a horse like that before. Yeah. And she thinks he's joking because she obviously knows. She obviously knows him very well.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "I'm not joking. I'm serious. I think he's genuinely scared."
Yeah.
And I love this this moment we get where you just get this pride and almost like he was afraid, and he's decided to leave with his wife, and whether he's scared for himself or his wife is not really clear. But he gets down the road, and you get this great shot where he just pulls up, and she's like, "Why have you stopped?" And he's like, "I can't. I've got to go back. I can't. He wants me to run away. I can't run away."
And he says, even if I do run away, he's going to find us down the trail at some point, and I haven't even got any guns on me.
And also I won't have the badge.
Yeah.
Because, if I just start murdering people in cold blood without a badge, you know what I mean? Like, I really, one of the things I really loved watching this earlier, and as I was going through it, is it really, for me, I've watched it once now. for my takeaway from this is it really skirts the line for me as to whether Kane is in the right or in the wrong for staying. I think it's certainly, you get to points where characters make very good arguments as to why he should just fucking leave, and that it's his ego keeping him there.
Yeah.
But his opinion, he has a very different view of it, and I don't know. I really like the kind of grey area that this film has. And to be honest, I was very surprised at the ending we got with this movie.
Well, I'll get into the stuff with for fuck's sake, John Wayne later.
Okay.
I'll get into the history stuff a bit later.
Cool. Well, I look forward to that.
But yes, this is kind of one of the first revisionist westerns. When it first came out, the people were a bit sort of find it very odd, because most westerns at this point were all big chases and big outs, and this isn't like that at all.
I think that's why I love it, to be honest, is that it's the opposite of that. It's a really interesting commentary.
Yeah, I mean, us now, we're in the bloody the 2020s. We've seen so many.
Oh, of course, but I can put myself in that.
Westerns that we're not exactly. We're kind of, or those that have seen a lot of westerns.
Yeah.
Seen so many that are barely westerns, or so sort of out there that some things like Dead Man or and things like that are just so sort of odd and But can you imagine if you're just used to seeing these
well, certainly if you put yourself in this time, it's a very different story. But I think it really would have stood out for that reason, for sure. But there is one added complexity and one added reason to kind of justify Kane's return to the town, and that is that the new marshal will not be arriving until the following day. So in his eyes, the town is going to be defenseless until then. Which really says something about his deputy. We'll get to the deputy very shortly. So he decides, I'm going back, and against Amy's wishes, they head back.
Yeah, she can't understand it at all. She's completely flummoxed by it.
Yeah, and she threatens. She says, like, I'm gonna buy a ticket and leave.
Yeah.
And you're either on that train with me at noon or you're not. That's up to you. But I'm leaving. So they head back to town, obviously. And we meet the judge, don't we? Who Miller, who sentenced Miller to prison, and he's like, I am. Do you not remember when he says something like, do you not remember when he sat in that chair and he said, I'm not going to die, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to hunt you down.
Sentenced him.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. The camera focuses on the chair, and it just keeps pulling into the chair as the judge is, saying what he promised he would do.
It's one of the really effective things that this movie does is that this character is built up so much throughout the movie. You don't see him. He's barely in it.
Yeah.
But God, the menace that builds up around him.
Yeah. And you're told that it was before before the marshal was there, the town was lawless. It was
that's the thing, because some people in private And that's the thing, yeah, because some people in private thank him, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Man, you cleared the streets." I think Lon Chaney Jr.'s character is like, "You cleaned up these streets," and other characters say it, but then in public, none of them will like kind of admit that what he did was great, because now this kind of menace is coming back to town, and a lot of them are just like too scared to say anything and just think, well, if you leave, then the problem will go away. We'd rather push you out than deal with this, you know.
And the judge is like, this is a terrible, this is a a stupid little town. Nothing ever happens here. Nothing, memorable will ever happen here. So I'm going. I'm moving on to the next one. I don't. I'm not going to be like. And I strongly suggest you do exactly the same.
Yeah. And so he leaves, and then we get Harvey, Kane's deputy, Lloyd Bridges, who it's a lot like Leslie Nielsen and stuff. You see these characters now is these kind of comedy characters, because that's who they play. They tend to play like they played a lot of comedy through the 90s due to like Naked Gun and Airplane and those kind of movies. But it's like, dude, I remember like Forbidden Planet. I remember him as a straight guy, and then here, obviously you see him as just this total asshole in Harvey.
Yeah, Bridges came to comedy very late.
They both did. But they both kind of got defined by it to kids of the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh god, he is so good in this
being
role.
an asshole.
Oh yeah, like a complete piece of shit, but he's so good at playing that complete piece of shit.
He is.
He comes in and he's all just like, "Thought you were leaving," and he's like, "Well, I can't because of this." And he's like, "Hey, why don't you just, you made a mistake. We got this new sheriff coming in. We don't need him. Make me the sheriff. You can go on your honeymoon, and no worries. We can tell the sheriff there's been a mistake. We don't need him anymore because I'm the sheriff."
And he says, "I'll stand with you. I'll stand with you if you do."
Yeah.
And
not sheriff, marshal.
And Kane says, "No, I'm not. I'm not buying it."
And he says, like, you're too hot-headed. He's like, "No, you're not ready." And I think he even says, "I don't think you'll ever be ready."
Yeah.
And being a complete piece of shit, Harvey's like, "Fine, then I won't stand with you."
Well, it's not what you want to hear, is it? To be, even if you don't.
No, but to then just prove him right completely.
Yeah, no, he takes his badge off, puts it on the desk, and takes his gun off, hangs it up.
Yeah, and he leaves. So now he's on his own. So obviously we also realize from the earlier scene, and as we come to see with Helen, Helen is with Harvey now. Helen and Harvey are a thing, and obviously Helen is a former lover of Kane.
Yeah,
and also Frank, the guy coming to murder Kane.
Yeah.
So it's super complex. But Helen is like, why are you not going to help him? She confronts Harvey about it, and he's like, well, he said this about me, and she's like, well, might be right. He might be right.
She has this amazing. I love it. He's being an awful prick.
He's awful.
And she says,
she just puts him in his place.
Yeah, she says, "You're a good-looking boy, and you've got broad shoulders." He says, "But he's a man."
Yeah. And she says, "You'll never be ready" as well.
You'll never. Yeah, it's like, oh man, that is.
And what I love is when she says, he comes back later and she's packing, and he's like, "You're leaving," and she's like, "Yeah, I'm leaving, because when Frank comes back, he's gonna kill Kane, and when Kane dies, this town will die."
Yeah.
There's no, because she remembers before.
Yeah.
She remembers before Kane sorted this out, And you almost get the impression that Harvey probably came after all of that. So he didn't see how lawless this place was, and, how awful things were.
And I mean, she owns the
saloon,
owns the
right?
bar.
Yeah.
But she owns a saloon. She sells up. She gets $2,000 for it.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm selling up. I'm going.
Yeah. And she doesn't want to be a widow, right?
The old guy that works for her. He even says, do you want me to help Kane? And she says
no.
It sounds like he was willing to, but she says no.
He's a real old dude anyway. It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
come on,
It's like,
buddy. Like, no. It's like later, I do like the, it kind of shows, although he's got a massive problem with his ego to an extent, you do kind of come to respect Kane later when he's really desperate for people, and he turns a couple of people, quite rightly turns a couple of people down.
Yeah.
That he could have just had as meat.
Yeah.
So yeah. But anyway, Amy buys a ticket. She's leaving. She said, nope, that's it. She bought a ticket for the noon train. And we see at the train depot, Ben Miller's getting impatient. So he heads into the saloon. And interestingly, first of all we get Harvey walk in.
Well, he goes in there before he goes in.
Harvey first, isn't it? Isn't it Harvey first in the bar?
Which one's
the deputy comes in?
Yes,
without
that's
his
right. Yes,
badge, and they kind of
he goes in. He goes in first. That's just after he gave the badge and the gun. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes in there, and they're all talking about how long he's going to last, and how bad it is, and you begin to get the impression that he's
not very well liked.
No, certainly not by the patrons of the bar.
No. And then as Ben Miller, one of the goons, turns up to the saloon, he's hero's welcome, cheered, and like, oh hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
So we quickly see that this town is very fractured, and maybe a lot of people benefited from these, when these guys were here, as lawless as the town was.
You get when for fuck's sake, when Grace Kelly goes into the hotel to wait.
Yeah.
Even
the clerk's an asshole.
The clerk is an awful human being, isn't he?
Yeah. I'm just saying. It's like, dude.
She says, can I wait here? And he says, yeah. And he says, are you leaving on the train? And she's the noon train. And she says, yeah. And he says, I wouldn't leave on the noon train for all the gold in the world, sort of thing. And she's like, why? He says, well, there's Frank Miller's got a lot of friends here, and this town used to be booming. It used to be really busy, and when it got cleaned up, it's not as busy anymore. It's like so it was either horrible rowdy cowboys doing horrible shit, or safe streets where people can move around on. So it's we know what you are then.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. We know where you sit on this. Cheers. But yeah, so he's kind of welcomed as a hero, which is interesting. And as Miller's leaving, he kind of obviously runs into Kane.
Yep.
And they have that kind of awkward moment.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything to him.
Don't need to. The look says it all.
Yeah.
And obviously this this reaffirms Kane's belief that they're definitely coming to murder me.
There's only one reason they're coming back.
No doubt. I did think that this would be really funny if the whole time they're doing this and then it gets to the end and he doesn't turn up on the train. They're just like, we're just hanging out. I don't know what you're talking about.
Delayed.
The train's delayed, sorry. Cancelled. So Kane enters the saloon, and it's practically hostile.
Well, as he's coming in, the barman is saying,
"Oh God,
he won't last 5 minutes,"
and he gets punched straight in the face.
Yeah, and the barman says, "You didn't have any call to do that."
Yeah, he says you've got a badge, you've got no right to do that, and he does apologize. He tries to pull him up, and he's like, "No, like leave me alone," and others help him away.
Yep.
And then he asks for volunteers. And he says, hey, you know what's going to happen here, and they're like, you've got some nerve coming in here. Like, they've got friends here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the patrons even points that out.
Yeah.
Excuse me. He says, like, hey, you saw Miller. He's got friends here. These guys have got friends amongst this crowd.
Yeah.
And he tries to make his argument, but he's pretty much rebuked and sent packing.
There's only one person that's vaguely listening, and that's the old drunk.
Yes, the old drunk with the eye patch. Yeah.
Or the eye patch.
Yeah. At some point, I forget whether it's here or later, we do get one guy who Herb, who turns up, and I can't remember at what point. I think we might have already.
I think it was before this bit, but yeah, Herb turns up and says, you know,
and I love his character.
I'll be in part of the posse. I won't let you down.
Yeah,
and he says, you know, once you've got the posse up, I'll come back. Give me a shout.
And he takes a star.
Yeah,
takes a star and a gun, and off he goes. He's happy. He's in. So Kane is obviously, like I said, he's rebuked at the bar. No hope in the saloon, so he ends up heading over to the church.
Does he? No, I think he goes. Does he go to his friend's house first? Or is that?
Yes, sorry, no, you're right. He goes to his friend's house because his wife tells him he's at the church, and that's why he goes to the church.
He says his friend.
He knows she's lying, though.
Yeah, well, his friend says to his wife, he says, "Oh, just tell him I'm not here. Tell him I'm not." And she says she's shocked by how cowardly he is.
She's like, he's your friend.
Yeah.
But she also says, like, he'll see right through my lies.
Yeah.
And he does. She tells him that he's at church. And he's
says,
like,
without you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like your lie is falling apart.
And she says, "No, I'll join him later." And it's like, right, okay.
She's like, "Oh, when I'm dressed, I gotta go get dressed." Like,
yeah.
Okay.
And when he leaves and the husband comes in and he just stares at her and she's completely shocked by him, and then he says, "What, do you want to be a widow?" She's like, "No, I don't. Of course, I don't want to be a widow." But you know, even she thinks, "What a cowardly fucker," you know?
Yeah. You know, and ultimately, there are only 4 of them.
Yeah.
You know, if the whole town.
Exactly.
Like if the bar had just been like, "Yeah, fuck them."
Yeah.
Like, would have stood a chance. So. Yeah. So he ends up heading to the church. I don't think he goes to the church to find his friend. I think he assumes his friend is not there, but he goes to see, to convince people anyway.
Yeah.
And I think this might be one of the most interesting parts of the movie because the conversation in the church I really like.
Yeah.
We get, he obviously gets chastised first of all for not getting married in the church, and he's like, "Well, look, my wife was a Quaker, so that's why I didn't do it there." And so the pastor says, say your bit. And so he does, and he asks for help, and he says, you know what's going to happen. And then we get this great conversation between the citizens, because some of them want to help, and a few of them are like,
At first, a few of them are like, "Come on, you remember what this town was like, or the marshal sorted it out. Women couldn't walk across the street. He's
made this town safe for women and kids."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a few, someone says, "Oh, but we pay for the marshal. Why should we get involved? We pay good money for a marshal and deputies. Why aren't they doing it?"
And also, you're no longer a marshal.
Yeah. And the mayor, he comes up and at first you think, oh, he's going to talk, he sounds like he's making sense, and it sounds like he's going to talk them round, and then he doesn't talk them round. He says, "No, I think he should go. I think."
Who is that? That guy's great. He's like, "Oh, this guy's a hero," and he cleaned up this town. But honestly, I think it would do more good if he just leaves, because the problem will disappear. The only reason they're coming to this town is to kill you.
Yeah.
So if you're not here, they're not going to cause any problems.
Thomas Mitchell.
I think I watched that moment and I was like, I completely can't argue with this guy's point of view.
No, I think that's the thing. You with a lot of them,
you're like solid argument.
Even though it depends on your point of view,
but you can see it. You can see both points.
Yeah, they're most of them are just citizens that have, never fought, never don't. Some of them probably don't even have guns. So,
well, and also, doing the cold numbers, cold maths.
Yeah.
You're like, well, you die, and maybe your wife, or a lot of people in this town die.
Yeah.
If you stay, and you might not even get found. You might leave and never be found. It's possible. So you can see the point of view, and you do start to question whether it's just Kane's ego, and you're like, maybe you should just leave, actually, buddy.
Yeah.
Maybe you should. Maybe you're going to bring more, death and heartache to this town if you stay than if you leave. So yeah, meanwhile, poor Helen is just trying to leave, and Amy drops in, and she's like, "Look,
so she gets with the comings and goings of the people in the hotel, and she's curious as to why this person upstairs seems
so
to have
many people."
Relationship with her husband.
Yeah, because one of isn't it like the clerk or someone lets it slip, doesn't he?
Well, and also, Kane comes in to see her. He goes up to see her.
Oh, that's true. But then, yes, he does, and then someone says specifically that that used to be friends or something. I think he says.
Yeah,
and he says it in such a way that you know.
Kane comes in, and the slimy clerk, he says to him, "Is she in?" And the clerk says, "Oh yeah, she's in room 2. You remember the way?" And it's like, fucking slimy bastard,
right in front of his wife as well.
Yeah. And she said when he goes in to see her, she says, I haven't seen your face in a year."
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can, he does care about her, and she clearly cares about him.
Yeah, she pretends not to, but
yeah.
And of course, so I think that happened earlier in the movie, and
it did. She says she's leaving, she's not staying around, and he's kind of happy that she's going.
Yes, I think he is. Yeah. So later, Amy drops in. Another of the people that drop in on poor Helen. She's just trying to fucking pack and leave. And she thinks, and again, you can see her logic. She thinks that her husband is staying because of her.
Yeah.
Because of Ramirez. But Ramirez is like, he is not staying because of me.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, he is staying because of his fucking ego, basically. And his sense of duty.
It's his code. It's his moral code.
And Amy, I feel so bad for Amy in this movie, because like she's like her like line of the movie is like, I was only married like 20 minutes ago, or like I was only married an hour ago. It's like all of this has happened since, She
didn't really understand what the hell's going on at all.
No,
it's all new to her.
Yeah, but she's like, hey, look, I'm leaving. You should leave with me. Just get out, get on that train and leave. That's
but she says to her,
if it was my man.
If it was my, she says, why don't you help him? And she's like, no, I'm not doing that. And he's like, if it was my man, I would pick up a gun. I would never leave him. Yeah,
she walks right into that one, because Ramirez is like, if it was my man, I'd pick up a gun and help him. And she's like, well, why don't you help him? And she's like, he's not my man.
Yeah.
It's like, she got you there.
Yeah. And also, Amy says, my brother and my father, they picked up the gun and they were on the right side, but they both died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They, I've seen, I know what happens. I've seen what happens to good men.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a really, this movie has barely any action and some of the greatest dialogue and scenes for a film of its time. I can see why this would have been so groundbreaking.
The tension is amazing.
Oh, it's incredible,
because you can see the desperation on Cooper's face, and you keep cutting to clocks.
Yes, sorry, I forgot to point that out. That's one of the things I love, is that clock. He keeps looking at the clock in the office,
and every time you go to you cut to a clock, the clock seems to get bigger.
Because is this film, I don't, strictly not, but it almost feels like it's meant to be filmed in real time.
It's not quite.
But it feels like its intention is like,
yes,
the clock's actually ticking
it
down.
It almost is. I think it's a couple of minutes out, but
that's forgivable.
It's almost in real time.
Yeah, which is really cool, and it really adds to that tension, like you said.
Yeah, it's and the other thing about a lot of the shots in this movie is that it's all stark. There's no fluff. There's no sort of beautiful shots of scenery or
no.
It's all barren.
Yeah. Funny enough, the only beautiful shot you get is Lee Van Cleef
the
coming in at
shot,
the start.
Yeah, the opening shot is the only one that sort of and it's not even the hero, which is. And the other thing you also get is you keep getting
I almost feel like that shot, now that we're talking about the movie, I almost feel like that shot is intended to kind of subvert you a bit, where you think it is the hero coming in, and then it's like, oh no, actually no.
Yeah, I completely think that's true. And the other shot you keep getting is the shot up the tracks. You don't, waiting for all it is it's almost completely flat, nothing around it, and you can just see the tracks going off into the distance.
Yeah.
Just the hills in the distance.
It's just that expectation.
Really beautifully done, and the tension is amazing in this movie.
Yeah, it is. It is incredible. So Kane heads to the livery.
I think we get the. Do we get the Lon Chaney scene before that?
Oh yes, sorry, yes he does. He goes to see Lon Chaney, who is like, dude, you should leave.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't help you. He's like, look, I'm old. I've got arthritis.
Yeah.
You would die worrying about me.
Yeah.
I would be more of a hindrance than a help.
Which is completely sort of, you think, well, that's true. If he's worrying about his mate not being able to help himself.
You kind of get the feeling that Lon Chaney's character honestly doesn't give a shit and would probably happily die. But he's like, I'm gonna be a hindrance to you. I'll go out. Fuck it, I'll go out there. But I'm telling you, you'll be worried about me more than it'll help you. Yeah,
I think that's exactly what he says, and it feels like it's true as well. It's
yeah. And then we also then following that scene we get the drunk with the eye patch who's like, hey, I just want a chance, man. I used to be good. Let me do it.
And he's so. I love how sort of gentle he is with him.
Well, and especially because he's so desperate for, like I said, he gets several opportunities here because a teenager as well, like a 14-year-old's like, hey, I'll do it, Marshall.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, and he could have used these people.
Yeah.
He could have done. So
so
on the one hand,
more unscrupulous guy would have just.
It's just meat shields, right? You've got extra people.
Exactly.
And it would have helped him. So on the one hand, he's very egotistical for staying, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, he does have this moral code, and he's not gonna. But he does clearly care about people enough that he's not just gonna put people in the line of fire to get rid of this guy.
That other people murdered.
Yeah. So he is, he's just goddamn exhausted at this point, and he's like, I've tried everywhere, I've been, turned down and just kind of spat on by the entire town, really, in his time of need. And he heads to the stable, and he's considering leaving. He has this moment where he's got his saddle, and he's like,
the horse. He's stood there looking at the horse.
And of course, the deputy turns up and loves this. He's like, hey. Catch you later, buddy.
He's like,
let me help you.
What a good idea. You're buggering off.
Yeah.
Here, let me help you. He's
and
like,
do you know what?
Satellite. He's like, Jesus Christ.
I think it was. Now, Kane denies it. Kane says I only considered it for a second. But I think if the deputy hadn't turned up, he might have left.
Maybe.
I think in a way, the deputy kind of pressuring
solidifies
him made him like, no, I am staying now. And in frustration, they have the same conversation again, and I think this is where Kane says, you'll never be Marshall. You're not Marshall material.
You're basically a kid, and you're always going to be a kid because you're never going to grow up.
Yeah. And fist fight. They have a fist fight. And I love another lovely thing. People getting knocked out is really fucking dangerous and will fuck you up, right?
Yeah.
I love he knocks Harvey out, and he immediately pours water on him to wake him up. Yeah. Immediately, he's like, you need to wake up.
Yeah.
Because I don't want you to get Well, I mean, I guess they probably wouldn't have much concept of brain damage back then, but
No,
they probably know that people can get knocked funny
you
and
certainly
knocked.
know that getting a hit to the head isn't good for your brain.
For your brain, yeah.
So that fight scene, Cooper did his own stunt, and
really,
the problem he had was he had a bad back,
right,
and he had a bleeding ulcer. He just had an operation on a bleeding ulcer.
Oh God.
So he wasn't in the best of shape, but he wanted to do it. And Lloyd's son, Bo, he wanted to see the fight scene, so he snuck him in and put him in the loft above them. And when Cooper chucks the pail of water over him, he laughed and ruined the whole scene.
Oh God.
So they had to film it again. But apparently, Cooper was so, he was really good about it. He was fine. It was like, he and then the next day he invited him and Bridges and his family to lunch. So he was like apparently a really generous guy. He was a really lovely
even though he was in a lot of pain and
even though he was in a lot of pain, and he didn't really want to do the scene again. He did.
Wow. Well, actors used to be made of different stuff.
Yeah, they didn't used to moan about,
everything.
No, this is too dark.
Yeah.
Or, no, I've got to play James Bond again.
Oh, it sucks getting paid millions to play James Bond. So anyway, Kane is obviously bloodied and kind of beaten himself after this. So he pours a pail of water over Harvey to kind of wake him up, and he goes to the barber's to clean up. Now, unbeknownst to Kane, but the barber's office, I guess, are also the Undertaker or the Undertaker's office as well.
Yard is the back, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. So they've been building more coffins. That was one of the lines early on. They're like, we're going to need at least 2 more coffins. Get making them.
Yeah, we're going to need at least 4 coffins or something. He says something.
So, of course, he goes in to get cleaned up, and we know what the banging is outside. He doesn't know, although I think he might have.
Well, I think no, he does know, because he when he's leaving, he says to him,
you can tell him to keep working.
Tell him to go back to work now.
Yeah, because he tells him to stop while they clean him up.
Yeah.
But yes, so Kane heads back, cleaned up now. Kane heads back to the marshal's office, and he finds I forget his name, guy who volunteered originally to stand with him. He's like, oh, I forgot you were waiting here, Herb. He's like, oh, Herb, I forgot you were here. And he's like, yeah, I've been waiting for you. He's like, where's the posse? Yeah. And Kane's like, there isn't one. It's just me and you. And I, again, such a well-written character, where he's like, hey, man, like, you can only ask a man to do so much, and I stood by you, and I would have stood by you, but you are asking me to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And I've got a wife and kids. Like, what about my kid? And Kane says, like, just go home. And he's like,
but you can see the sort of it's like the life drains out of his eyes. He's like,
but he even says as he's leaving, he's like, hey, if you get that posse, I'm back in.
Yeah.
I'm not going to kill myself, but if you've got a posse, I will be here. But he leaves, and Kane starts writing his will.
Well, you also got in the town drunk Jack Elam, the amazing Jack Elam.
Yes.
In the cell, who's literally
he just gets him out, and he's like,
all you see is he basically gives him money to go to the bar. But the thing,
I love like the first thing he says when he leaves the cell is like, do you know if the saloon's open, Marshall?
Yeah. The saloon's open. So
he's like, I told you to go home.
There was two bits that were cut out. So there's a whole subplot with another deputy.
Oh, really?
He's bringing a criminal in, and they basically said, they decided that it just took all the tension away. It didn't. So they got rid of that.
That's probably good, because this movie's really short. It's like 1 hour 25, including the credits.
Yeah, you didn't need the secondary story. And also, there's a scene with Jack Elam in that he goes to the bar, and I think he's like juggling pints or something. He's doing something with drinks. So he's got this real comedy moment, and I think they looked at it and thought, yeah, I get that again. That's. No. So his part was cut down completely to just him waking up in the cell.
I think it works. This film is so goddamn tense from beginning to end, and that tension only builds I think comedy acts and all of that. You know, you've got like a very brief moment of levity here where the guy asks immediately for the saloon and he's like, no, I told you to go home. And that's
that's all you need. You didn't need any more than that. Just a little bit of a laugh when he says, oh, I'm just it's the saloon open and that's it. He's like,
yeah, totally. You know, just that's it. And then he sits down and he starts to write his will. And I love, just as he's like kind of halfway through writing it when he hears the whistle of the train. Yeah. And it's that like, time's up. And he kind of winces every time because he keeps writing and then he hears it again and he winces again because he just knows. It's like, oh.
You get these amazing shots of his face. There's one shot, you know, when it's right near, just before that, I think he goes to write his will. He's walking down the street and the camera's really close into his face. And you can just see his eyes darting around trying to find anywhere he can go to ask for help.
Yeah, there's nowhere left, but he's desperately searching. So
meanwhile, the two ladies have gone. They've gone to the
I think he sees them in a moment, doesn't he? I thought.
Yeah, they pass him.
Yeah, which is another one of my favorite scenes. You know, for a film I've only just watched, like, this film is goddamn amazing. I was blown away watching this.
Honestly, if I didn't know you hadn't seen it before, I probably wouldn't have picked it.
Well, I thought I had. It's one of those movies I assumed I had, but I've watched a lot of westerns as a kid, and I think it's just probably one I assumed I saw when I hadn't. But tremendous. This film is amazing. I'm so glad you did suggest it because it is a hell of a movie to watch.
Yeah.
So the three outlaws start getting their gun belts and getting ready as the train starts to approach.
Yep.
Kane steps out of his office onto the street and we get this great shot. Now, Amy and Ramirez are leaving. Mm-hmm. Amy briefly looks at him.
Yeah.
And then continues on as she's riding. Helen Ramirez doesn't take her eyes off of him.
No.
Her head turns the whole way round. She keeps watching him the entire way out. She knows, in her mind, Kane's going to die.
That's the last time she's ever going to see him.
Yeah, she's convinced he's going to die. The two arrive at the station. Just as Frank Miller steps off. So Frank makes eye contact with Helen. And they have a moment because obviously we know that they were an item before in the past. We then get obviously Miller putting the gun belt on. He talks to he's like, hey, is everything ready? And they're like, yep, just as you wanted it, boss. Your guns are over here. And he goes to get the guns. And then we get that incredible shot of Kane on his own in the street.
Yeah.
Incredible. The gang starts walking into town. Kane, luckily, Ben Miller's a dickhead, and decides to steal a hat. And it's like, dude, the fuck is wrong with you?
I don't understand.
There would have been plenty of time for that later.
There's a really weird thing. I can't explain
why.
There must be something. I feel
maybe
like
it was
I'm
cut.
missing something there.
Maybe it was cut.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it is weird. I mean, it tips off Kane, but you're like, why would you do that now? You could kill the marshal, and then you've not got a marshal for like 24 hours. You could have done whatever you wanted.
Yeah, it's very odd. But one thing was, so Ben Miller was played by Sheb Woolley.
Yeah.
He was the voice of the Wilhelm scream.
Ah, he was, okay.
Which is, I just think that's really cool. He also sang Purple.
Well, it was around this time as well, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. He also sang Purple People Eater.
Ah,
which is like, it's weird little things that I found out what really.
I love the internet.
Yeah, the internet's great.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes.
Actually, it's probably done more harm than good, but it works every now and again. It's great.
Yeah. It's good for these sorts of things.
Yeah,
anyway.
It's great for this sort of thing. The Wikipedia black hole is real.
It really is.
He hears the window break, which otherwise he'd be dead.
Yeah.
He was like about to turn the corner and just get blasted by all four of them. So Kane manages to circle back around, and he calls out, and immediately shoots Ben Miller.
Yeah.
So Ben Miller's down. Amy hears the gunshot and jumps off the train just as it's about to leave.
Yeah.
And Ramirez is like kind of tries to stop her, but Amy's like, no, goodbye, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I was thinking that Ramirez was gonna get involved as well, but she doesn't. She leaves. She's like, hey, he's dead.
No, she makes it clear he's not my man. He's not there for me.
No. So Amy heads into town, and she, I think for a moment, thinks that Kane is dead on the floor.
Yeah.
And then she realizes that it's actually Ben Miller. Meanwhile, there's more gunfire. Kane gets caught in the shoulder, I think.
Yeah. Well, there's a fight in that he ends up in a barn, doesn't he?
Yes, when they start setting fire to the barn.
He shoots another one. When he's
I think that's Van Cleef, right?
I think
kills Van Cleef there.
Yeah, I think so.
And then it's just two left, but they start throwing lanterns. They set the barn on fire, and again showing Kane, he might be egotistical, but he is a good dude. He gets all the horses out. Now, I guess he probably did it partly to cover himself.
You say egotistical. I say principled.
I don't know. My takeaway. I'm very torn. Yeah. And I love that about this movie. I'm very torn as I watch this movie. I don't know. Honestly, I say egotistical, but you're right. I don't know. I could go either way. A bit of both, maybe. A bit.
I think principled, but that's
certainly principled. Certainly principled. But there were moments. I think it was the church moment where the guy literally is like, "You realize if you just went away, the problem would disappear with you."
But it wouldn't, though, would it? The town. I think the town. If
their argument is that they are there for him, and if he's not there, they will ride through town and continue on after him.
Yeah, but I don't think that will happen. I think
maybe not. Certainly, Kane thinks that will not happen.
Yeah,
I believe that Kane thinks that actually, if I go, people are going to die.
Yeah, and they certainly will kill me later anyway.
So, like I said, I feel like this film skirts the line for me as to who's in the right and who's in the wrong.
Yeah,
in terms of the town people in Kane, which is obviously Miller's piece of shit. Obviously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I really don't know, but I really like that about it. But anyway, he lets all the horses out, which I appreciated. I like horses. And he sensibly uses one of them. He kind of like hangs off the edge, which I've now realized that's something you can do in Red Dead Redemption 2. And I'm like, I wonder if that's I wonder if that's a callback to that. Although it happened quite a bit in movies, I guess.
Yeah.
But he heads out with all the horses. They shoot after him. I think they do hit him again, and he gets hit off of his horse. Either he or his horse gets hit. And he ends up off the horse.
Yeah, I think he just gets knocked off because I think he does catch one. I think is it in the arm? He catches one in the arm at some point.
Yeah. So Kane ends up in a store, doesn't he? He kind of runs into a store, and Miller and Pierce are basically shooting into the building. Pierce stops to reload. And that's
actually, this is one of those times as well. This is one of the rare movies at the time that showed people reloading.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point.
You don't get that very often. Certainly not in 50s.
And I'll tell you another thing you don't see very often. Certainly not in a Western of this period. Amy shoots the fuck out of him.
Yeah.
The pacifist.
She goes to the marshal's office, and obviously no one's there, but she picks up the deputy's gun.
And again, well placed, because we saw it placed there earlier.
Yeah.
It's not like she just, all of this stuff is placed and in position. And I think one of the great things about this being like such a short space of time and only a very set couple of locations, we get to see everything play out and where everything is in relation to everything else, and it all comes together really nicely in scenes like this, where Amy picks up the deputy's gun and shoots the goon in the back.
Yeah, shoots him through the window.
Frank obviously immediately is like, "Oh, you have got help."
Yeah.
And heads into the office and obviously finds Amy. He grabs her, obviously puts a gun to her head, and brings her out as a shield. And he's like, "Hey, if you don't come out, she will end up." I can't remember who he says. His friend, I guess, of some kind. He's like, "Hey, if you don't come out, you'll end up just like insert character name."
Yeah.
Someone I assume from his past.
Anyway, yeah. She'll end up dead anyway.
She'll end up dead, just like someone that I killed before, presumably.
Yeah.
So he's like, Kane's like, "Right, I will come out, but you let her go." And he's like, "Hey, as soon as you're in the door," he's like, I won't shoot you. As soon as you're in the doorway, as soon as you're out of that door, I'll let her go."
Yeah.
And again, you know, Ramirez and Amy are both strong characters, and you know, for the time,
they really are. Certainly
pretty fucking good for the time.
They certainly are.
Having seen a lot of films from the 40s and 50s, this is, you know, it's against.
I mean, I do think there are actually quite a lot of very strong female characters in certainly in a lot of 30s movies and stuff like that.
I guess like Dracula's Daughter and thing. Yeah, there's
a
few.
But having said that, they are sort of, I guess, you know, you would say few and far between, I suppose, really.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, we discussed on our last episode with them, similar.
Yeah, she's a pretty strong woman.
She tells him to sod off. She's going in that ant cave. No one's going to stop her.
It is.
But anyway, Amy spins around and claws Miller in the face.
Yeah.
He throws her down, and of course, you know, he ain't that quick. Marshall takes aim and shoots Miller dead.
Yep.
And then the townspeople flood. Oh, there they are.
Hey.
There's the whole town.
Yeah.
They come out and Kane's wagon is like driven up so quick.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, okay. It's like just spawned in.
It's like it's literally waiting off camera for him.
Yeah. But I love the shot. You know, that kind of is a bit goofy, but like it's like fine because it kind of works for the shot of the film. And you could argue that those horses have been a bit spooked and they were just kind of wandering about or whatever. But in fact, I think people ride them in and then get off.
I think somebody is riding it in. Yeah.
And they're like, "Will you please leave?"
Might have been the kid. I can't remember.
Oh, it might be the kid actually. But I love the shot where Kane just looks around at these townspeople and he's just like, "You fucks," and he just throws his star into the dust and leaves with his wife.
Yeah.
And dude, what an
completely done
awesome movie. I absolutely love this movie.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, High Noon. I absolutely recommend it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
So this movie was the screenplay by Carl Foreman. Carl Foreman was at the time, basically, well, he wasn't a member of the American Communist Party,
right?
At one point, and at this point, he was basically brought before the House of Un-American Activities Committee.
Yeah,
and they basically he wouldn't name anybody. They basically wanted him to name other people, and he refused, so he got blacklisted.
Right.
He ended up running away to Britain. He came here, and he had a career over here. But at the time, you know, he was partnered with Stanley Kramer, who was the producer of the movie, and they kind of, I think they were partnered, but I think because of what was going on with the committee, they separated ways, and you know, Foreman went away. John Wayne said this was the most un-American movie he had ever seen. He said because
it's very against the type of cowboy movies that he made.
The thing is it's kind of this movie is an allegory for blacklisting. It's
and that makes perfect
turning
sense,
their back
right?
on you.
Yeah.
So, you know, and
when you've done good for them as well.
Yes.
It's a very clear message.
Mm-hmm. So it was John Wayne himself, who was part of the committee, he helped get a lot of people blacklisted. He got, and he said in interviews much later, he was one of the best things he ever did was run him out of town. You know, that's what he felt. And John Wayne hated the movie so much that him and Howard Hawks hated it as well. So their response was to make Rio Bravo.
Wow.
Because they basically felt that the townsfolk wouldn't turn on him like that, and also it was terribly un-American of him to run around town like a headless chicken asking for help. A real hero doesn't do that. That's
it's almost.
I love Rio Bravo. I think Rio Bravo is a great
movie,
but this is, you know, I think this is a fantastic movie that you know, the hero. I think he's a hero, and I think he's principled hero.
Well, now I know we obviously down the road will get a remake of Seven Samurai with the Magnificent Seven. But this feels like Seven Samurai.
Yeah,
you know, it's very, because Seven Samurai was very against type. You do not show samurai in being cowards. You do not show samurai acting
like
in
bullies and
yeah. And similarly here, it's un-American. You can't have you can't have a marshal acting like this, and of course the townspeople would help, and they wouldn't do this to the marshal, and it feels very similar in that way.
Yeah. It's more realistic. It has a more
it feels much more organic. Yeah.
Humanity doesn't really change, and this is what there are so many times where this sort of thing has happened. You know, things when they say when the going gets tough, you know, the normal people will go, oh, I don't want to fucking get involved.
Yeah.
I don't want to die, and I don't want to, you know, I've got family or whatever, and people will, and there's always the high ideal of the old westerns, you know, the true hero, and you know, and everybody pitches in and all that sort of stuff. That's the true myth of you know, the West, isn't it? It's the idea that everybody was noble or a villain, and you could definitely tell the difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the Rio Bravo was basically made in response to this movie, and it was done on a really low budget. It was going to be a B pick, and of course it was also at the time color was already prevalent. Most of the big movies were already in color.
Well, it was the gimmick, you know, color's the gimmick.
And this one was kind of like felt weirdly old because it was black and white, and people were like, "Why is it in black and white?"
I must admit, I would have thought it was an older film than it was had I not seen how old Lon Chaney Jr. looks in it. And then I was like, okay, that definitely dates this movie.
Well, the funny thing I found was that, like, all the sort of groups that were sort of boycotting it. So obviously the anti-communist leagues were all boycotting it, but one of the groups that boycotted it was
people have never been able to separate art from artist. Clearly,
yeah. One of the groups was the KKK. You think, right? Okay, it's like I'm sure they probably thought it was a good thing for them. Whatever. I mean, Jesus.
God.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just such a really amazing and movie that, you know, it's been stored in. It's now stored in the, you know, the Library of Congress, and it was three presidents' favorite movie. It was Reagan, Eisenhower, and Clinton. It was their favorite movie. Because apparently a lot of people love the idea that, you know, it's the guy against.
Well, and presidents are notoriously unpopular and hated by most people, so I can totally see themselves as like the noble, you know, yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
And there was a really cool incident in Poland. I think is it Poland? Hang on, Poland. So when the communists were sort of losing power in Poland, the sort of the free party, as it were, that were they had free elections. This artist retooled the Polish poster for High Noon, and
Right.
it had him holding a bill, and it had the name of, telling people to vote.
Right.
In the '89 elections, is telling people to sort of vote, and I think the communists thought it was hilarious and they took the piss out of it. But the people loved it. They really, really warmed to this poster. And apparently the guy who made it, like, he's really proud that he gets people come up and wanting him to sign this poster. And apparently it completely, that they won the election. They beat the communists. That
based possibly off of, or with a big helping hand from this poster.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that something like that, something so small, could do something like that.
Yeah.
And I presume you've seen Outland.
Outland?
The Sean Connery.
Yeah. Sorry, I assumed you were talking about the Sean Connery movie, but then I'm like, maybe there's a Western called Outland that I'm not.
No, Outland is basically a remake of this.
Oh, dude, I've just realised. Yeah. Oh, I do you know I hadn't put two and two together. Yeah. Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah.
Outland is kind of a remake, and I love Outland.
Way, I was going to say I really like Outland.
It's another one of those movies that gets I think it's a lot more looked on favourably now, but I think it's certainly at the time, and when I first watched it, people dogpiled on it. It was like, this is just awful. Why? It's like it's just not how you want to see space movies.
The Blade Runner connection as well, isn't there? Over the years, they've done that theory. Although I feel like every film's been like linked to Blade Runner at some point. They're like anything that's vaguely similar. They're like, oh look, it links to Blade Runner somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Outland. Do you know, I hadn't put that together until right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting.
And there's a sequel starring Lee Majors, which I've never seen.
God, I watched such a bad Lee Majors movie yesterday.
You've seen a Lee Majors movie? I haven't seen a Lee Majors movie for a long time.
My friend, I was like, just finally getting over this virus, and I was like, take it easy today. And me and my friend were talking over Messenger about Canon movies and stuff, and then he sent me a link to this movie. It's not a Canon film, but it looked fucking terrible. But I was like, I need to see this film, and it was called The Last Chase. And it stars Lee Majors and Burgess Meredith, and it's like in the future they claim that oil's run out and it's totalitarian. But this guy who used to be a race driver, he takes his petrol race car and he's gonna race across America, and so they hire a fighter pilot to stop him. Burgess Meredith, he's like ex-drunk fighter pilot, to take him down because he's being against the system. And it is absolutely awful. It was absolutely awful, but it was very funny. I don't know what year it was. Burgess Meredith looked somewhere in the early Rockies. It's like how old I place him age-wise.
So early 80s.
Yeah, maybe late 70s, early 80s.
Okay.
It was terrible. It felt like it went on forever. It was like at least an hour longer than it needed to be. There's a few little bits, but it was not a good movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was an aside.
There's the Lee Majors sequel, which I've not seen, and there is a Tom Skerritt, Michael Madsen remake from the 2000s, which again I haven't seen. And apparently there's been a number of attempts to remake it in recent times. The last one, I think, was 2018, and it was going to be modern setting on the Mexico border.
Right.
Which kind of just sounds like... what's that one with Schwarzenegger?
Oh, God, that was awful.
Yeah, it's got... That just it made me think of that. That's... I can't remember what it's called now.
It's like the one with fucking Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's like two films. It's weird.
I haven't seen it. I've seen clips, but I've not seen the whole movie. I just remember. I have seen it. And I tell a lie. I have seen it because I remember there's a big scene on a bus and stuff.
Yeah.
No, I did see it. I have seen it. Yes.
It's rubbish. Oh god, I can't think what it's called. But anyway, yeah, I know the movie you're on about.
But yeah, I would highly recommend this movie to anybody. It's a fantastic movie.
It's classic, and honestly, it's even I would argue even if you're not into quote unquote old movies and black and white films, because I know a lot of people are turned off by black and white films and stuff.
Yep.
Honestly, this movie is so pacey. I think you'll be fine with it.
Yeah.
Like, it does not hang about. It's really well paced. Despite there being very little action, it's extremely well paced, and the tension is just incredible.
And also, I just saw one of my notes was that Cooper actually took the job because his father was a judge, and his father said that justice was everybody's job.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's why he took the job.
I certainly feel like that is in line with his character in this film as well.
Yeah.
But yes, so that was High Noon. Massive recommendation from Matt and from me, who has just seen it today. We're trying to double up this week, so we will have this episode will probably be out Tuesday morning, and we will hopefully have another episode out on Friday afternoon, evening. Because need to catch up. Because it's been bloody ages, and otherwise we'll do like a 4-hour episode or something.
I've already got stuff to review, so I'm almost ready to go.
I don't have anything to review yet because I've just been watching Harry Potter movies, but I will have things to review by then. And obviously we got all those terrible Super Bowl trailers to talk about, so fine.
We haven't talked about the DC lineup either.
I don't even know what it is. But yeah, I'll look it up.
DC lineup, okay.
I'm aware that it's underwhelming, but I don't know.
Yes.
Wasn't there like Batman and Robin was one of them?
Yeah, and it's
that's kind of interesting.
It's the Damian Wayne Robin as well.
No, it's my least favorite Robin.
Yeah.
Oh well, never mind. We'll talk about it on Friday.
Yes.
Anyway, we should be back to regular episodes now. Sorry about that, everybody. Got ill, but we will be back next time. And until then, take care and catch you later.
Bye.